Now, the Omicron subvariant EG.5 or ARIS is the dominant strain of the virus. Although overall infections remain much lower compared to the past, CDC data shows for the week ending August 12th, hospitalizations rose 22% from the previous week. Dr. Steve Threlkeld, an infectious disease specialist with Baptist Memorial Healthcare, said ARIS is similar to past Omicron subvariants and presents similar symptoms. But a brand new variant called BA.2.86 is starting to circulate and appears to be much different than previous strains.
We don't know whether it's more severe. We don't know how much more contagious it will be. But anytime you see a lot of changes in the surface of a protein of a pathogen or virus, you're going to have the immune system have to catch up a bit.
Though it's unknown whether the new variant will cause more severe disease. Dr. Shirin Mazumdar, an infectious disease specialist for Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare, said it's best to take precautions.
Certainly, if somebody is high risk, if they're immunocompromised, if they're at a certain age, for instance, if they're older, or even if they live with a high-risk individual, they may want to consider wearing a mask in high-risk settings, which would be a crowded setting with poor ventilation.
And if you test positive for COVID, the CDC recommendations remain the same. Stay at home for at least 5 days and isolate from others in your home. The new COVID booster, which is designed to target Omicron subvariants, is expected to be available sometime this fall.
Is telling residents of his state to not get the updated COVID-19 vaccine if they are under the age of 65. DeSantis' remarks coming during a virtual roundtable with Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo.
I've had Floridians come to me saying that their parents, physicians are already telling them that, you're 80 years old, you have to take this new shot that has just been approved. And a lot of people have questions.
The new director of the CDC, Mandy Cohen, defending the new COVID vaccines as proven safe, effective, and having been thoroughly and independently reviewed by the FDA and CDC. As COVID cases and hospitalizations have been ticking up, this week the CDC recommending the new vaccine and advising everybody aged 6 months and up to get the updated shot, stressing it will protect against waning immunity and current subvariants. Dr. Deb Oury is a deputy director at the CDC.
We know that it protects against severe hospitalization and death. Everyone could be at risk for hospitalization or death if not vaccinated. Certainly, if you have immunocompromising conditions or other medical issues.
The CDC says the vaccines underwent rigorous clinical trials with tens of thousands of participants since 2020, and monitoring has continued since then. DeSantis has been accused by critics of using the COVID vaccine as a political ploy as he runs for president. The CDC says the updated COVID vaccines could be available as soon as this week, with more supply coming after that.
So you might want to watch this because we all know what happened last time. I believe that doctor's name was, I forgot it, but she was all on Daystar and everything last, a few years ago when the whole COVID stuff happened, and she was talking about the messenger mRNA, and all of a sudden she started getting removed from Daystar, got removed from different social media outlets because she was telling the truth just as well as those other doctors were. The African doctor was telling the truth about the vaccines and stuff. So we saw how they treated them. So watch this one, and you possibly want to record it and keep it in your files in case they try to remove this lady as well. But watch what she says.
FDA just approved a new set of COVID-19 vaccine boosters. Here to talk more about those, our emergency medicine and disaster specialist doctor, Dr. Kelly Victory. Dr. Victory, long time no chat. How are you, my friend?
I am well. Thanks for having me, Paul.
All right, so new boosters for young and old. Your thoughts, please.
Well, I am really flabbergasted, Paul, that the FDA has approved these brand new boosters, for one thing. To be clear, these boosters were tested on a total of 10 mice, not a single human. 10 mice were given this new vaccine, and they were compared to 10 mice that got the previous booster. This new one is a monovalent one. It is based solely on the XBB variant. of Omicron, but it was not tested on a single human being, and the mice were only tested for a very short period. So I have grave concerns about the safety and certainly the efficacy of these new shots. Furthermore, to be clear, this is not FDA approved. It is being made available only under the emergency use authorization. You really have to ask yourself what emergency we are still in, since the pandemic, even according to President Biden, ended now coming up on 2 years ago. The bigger issue, I think, truly, though, is that my goal is not to convince an individual not to get one of these vaccines, but more to educate people about how they ought to analyze and decision make about any particular therapeutic. So I look at vaccines the same way I look at any medical intervention, whether it's an antibiotic or a surgical intervention or a vaccine. And I look at it as a three-legged stool, where the legs of that stool are safety, efficacy, and necessity. So we take that first leg, safety. As I said, these vaccines have been woefully under tested. We have nowhere near the kind of time that we need to know about the safety profile. They weren't tested on human beings. And as you know, we have a worrisome number of significant adverse events that are likely associated with vaccines. So that's leg number one. Number two, efficacy. These vaccines, unfortunately, have failed to do the things we were promised they would do. They don't stop people from contracting COVID. They don't stop you from transmitting it to others. And they really haven't shown to decrease hospitalizations. So efficacy is inadequate. And then thirdly, the third leg, necessity. I would argue, do we really need to compel people to take an experimental, under-tested, likely ineffective, brand new shot for a virus, the symptoms of which are very, very mild? The good news about COVID is that it has mutated to a level where it causes very mild symptoms. It has become more contagious, as viruses do when they mutate, but at the same time, it has become less lethal. The current symptoms of COVID are very mild, akin to a common cold: stuffy nose, scratchy throat. People are not being hospitalized with it, and they certainly are not dying from it.
So, and the FDA, what age group are they pushing these, clearing these boosters for? Is this for young people, old people, anybody?
Anybody. They are recommending these. They're pushing these now for as young as 6 months old.
Well, isn't that ridiculous?
And again, it's absolutely ridiculous. And again, this monovalent booster that has just been released under the emergency use authorization is based on the XBB variant of Omicron. That currently constitutes less than 4% of all the cases. In other words, XBB is almost extinct already. And this really speaks to the point, Paul, that I've mentioned in the past. There's a reason we have never been able to create a safe and effective vaccine for coronaviruses. They mutate too quickly. That spike protein on the original Wuhan strain was gone long before they ever created the first vaccine. XBB currently represents less than 4% of all the cases. In other words, this booster has a 96% chance of failing, because it's, in all likelihood, that's not the variant you're going to have by the time you finally get the booster.
Alongside these boosters that are coming out with people are getting their flu shots now, or probably already have. There's this RSV vaccine for this respiratory virus that's also alongside these other shots now for super young, super old. I was a little taken back at my pharmacy. They thought I was in the age group that actually should get an RSV. But I know you. Tell me the effectiveness of that shot.
Well, respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, can pose a significant risk to very, very young infants and occasionally in the elderly. It is not a significant risk to the vast majority of the population. It's been around for a long time, and most people sail right through it. I think we've gotten a little vaccine happy, the FDA has. They are in my estimation, over vaccinating people. The human immune system is the last great frontier of medicine. it doesn't always respond in a way that we think it's going to. So the idea of vaccinating people, over and over again in rapid succession for every single pathogen under the sun, I think is unwise. We have a very strong immune system if we will just rely on it and fight off the vast majority of these things on our own. It produces a stronger immune system overall. And unless someone is at really significant risk for a poor outcome from something, I think it is unwise to suggest that everybody needs an RSV shot in the same way that everybody doesn't need an influenza shot. I don't want to get the flu and spend 8 or 10 days sick in bed, but I know if I do get it, I will be able to manage it, and I don't personally want to take the risks that are associated with another vaccine.
Dr. Kelly Victory, thank you for making time for us. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.